Adam Thielen catches 11 passes, 145 yards, and a touchdown. Barry, this was a throwback Adam Thielen performance.
It just goes to show you, there's value from old people. Hello. So I just want to say, like, hey, Adam Thielen, we are a pro Adam Thielen. We are pro AARP here at the happy hour.
Tough 80 seconds for Barry.
Fantasy Football Happy Hour with Matthew Berry, served by Applebee's.
Welcome to the Fantasy Football Happy Hour. It's Waiver Wire Day. I'm Connor Rogers alongside Matthew Berry, Jay Croucher, and fellas, I have to start off with some kind of somber news.
I don't know why we're running this.
I drink for free.
Yes.
Today.
No,
yes.
Plot
Connor
twist.
Rogers drinks for
Plot
free.
twist.
Now, a lot of people
We'll
are
get to that
asking,
too.
wait, is Connor Rogers old enough to drink for free? And that's a fair question.
Yes.
We have carded him, and he is, in fact, legal enough to drink, or you have a very good person with fake IDs. Like, you have a very good fake ID person. My 18-year-old could use that person's name at Alabama. Anyway, the fact of the matter is, Connor, you drink for free. Why do you drink for free, Connor? Let everyone know.
I got the chop in our guillotine league. Even worse, I lost in a pathetic duel to Blake.
Yeah,
Researcher
Penn State Blake. It was down to you and Penn State Blake at the sweating it out last night.
To make matters much worse, I lost because I had to start Sam Howell because of Joe Burrow's never-ending calf injury. And Sam let me down. Hall of Famer Sam Howell.
Future Hall of Famer Sam
finally had a
Howell.
bad week in fantasy. I'm out on the guillotine league. But the good news is, fellas.
Had you started Joe Burrow, would you have won? Would you
No,
have
he didn't do
survived?
anything either.
No, I know, exactly.
Yeah.
So you were. So let's
Disaster
not
class.
Let's not place this at the foot of future Hall of Famer
no.
Sam Howell.
Which Hall of Fame that's you now?
Yeah,
CFL?
XFL, USFL merger.
Yes, there you go.
No.
Go watch that on some of that on
we'll
Peacock.
see. Yeah,
by the way.
yeah, right. Look, my feeling here is that Sam Howell will bounce back. It was one bad game. Bad
Too
day
late.
at the office. It happens.
There's no going back.
No.
Doesn't matter.
It wasn't
care.
it wasn't just Sam Howell that let you down.
No, Austin Eckler's been hurt. I drafted Jonathan Taylor in a guillotine league. Rookie mistake. My first guillotine league.
Took him first
I
overall.
actually made it longer than I expected.
Yeah.
But here's the good news.
Week 3.
Now I can turn all my attention to our actual show league, where you and I are 3-0.
We are both 3-0.
And I heard there was a prestigious matchup this week in that
There
show
was.
league that led to you being 3-0.
That's right. There was a lot of
Because,
trash talked on this stage, at this table.
Take a look for yourselves.
But there you go.
That's Jay against Matthew.
I'm just going to read it. Live at noon on the Cock, which is my team, dominates Can't Guard Mike's Vegemite with an A-plus performance.
Okay, well,
And then there's a button to share it. Should I share it?
no, I wouldn't share it. So there's two things. One, obviously my team was built around De'Von Achane, so as soon as he went down, I don't really have a chance.
That was
much
your
of
first
those
mistake.
weeks.
Are we not showing the matchup
No,
here?
we didn't show the matchup. And then secondly, you used Raheem Mostert, so you cheated.
I didn't. There we go. There's the matchup there. Look,
I had to start Jonathan Mingo.
Just
Got
so you
knocked
get,
out.
Connors, just so you can see, this is what it looks like when you win a league with Sam Howell. This is what it looks like.
Right.
This is.
Yeah, you
see,
could
I was
overcome.
able to overcome Sam Howell thanks to Ride or Die, Amon-Ra, St. Brown. Obviously it's a super flex league, so you see down there at the bottom Jalen Hurts. I started Howell at quarterback because you never want to start, the Monday night guy at the position. If anything happened to Hurts, I could, in fact, flex him out there. But you see Jerome Ford, CeeDee Lamb. Ford I got before the Nick Chubb injury, by the way. My buddy Eight, CeeDee Lamb is there. Hawkinson, Mostert. What's crazy is that I took it easy on you because on the bench I had Tank Dell.
Okay.
Vegemite.
Well, everyone who watched the Carolina-Seattle game knows that Jonathan Mingo, the way Dalton was looking at him, he was going to have a 50-point performance before he got knocked out in the second quarter, and that would have got me home. Derek Carr also got injured as well.
How did your Najee Harris that you crowed about, your 6th-round Najee Harris, do for you?
He looked okay. He was trending in the right direction, potentially.
Dangerously close to 7 fantasy points.
We're sweating those points.
Dangerously close.
Gonna really
what was
need,
it? What was the line? Do you know what the line was before the game?
It was like 9.5 or something.
Yeah.
You covered. Hold on. Again, you had Raheem
Because
Mostert. It's not a
because
real
I
week.
beat you by 45.
Yeah.
So I feel like I beat the line.
Yeah.
I feel like people that bet on me won, and people that bet on you lost.
Very
Yeah.
Dolphins
even if they
Broncos.
bet on you to cover, you couldn't do that. You couldn't do a backdoor cover there.
Couldn't do a backdoor cover. Yeah,
No.
you're very competitive, Matthew. Wouldn't be surprised if it was you who slammed Derek Carr's shoulder into the turf at Lambeau to, again, diminish my chances of winning.
I'm just saying, can you turn your head because Connor and I want to do a secret undefeated handshake and you can't be a part of it?
What about me and Blake can do a 1 and 2 handshake?
We are 1-2.
Yeah.
We are 1-2. Penn State Blake.
They're the 0-3.
And Vegemite Mike over here. All right. Waiver wire. Let's
We're
get to
getting
that.
with the
Let's
waiver
help
wire.
some
We will
people.
get into the Monday Night Football doubleheader, but we're starting with the important stuff, okay?
Yeah.
We're getting into waiver wires. And, of course, we're starting with the running backs here because, man, if this guy's available in your league, Barry said it earlier in the week, this is kind of one of those ones where you dump a lot of the fab on. It's De'Von Achane, by the way, for all those that have studied the media guides of Texas A&M and the Miami Dolphins. It is not Achane.
I've watched almost every Texas A&M football game my entire life because I grew up in College Station. It's always been De'Von Achane, but after his record-setting performance, he apparently told people, Adam Schefter tweeted this out, reported it, that he would prefer to be called De'Von Achane moving forward. We respect you run for 200 yards and 4 touchdowns. We'll call you whatever you want.
Listen, when you go for 18 carries, 203 yards, 2 touchdowns, 2 more touchdowns through the air, he asked for 2 things, and they're honestly simple things. Just say my name like this, and I want my Madden rating a little higher. So good for De'Von Achane, Jay, who Achane, who it's going to take a while because we've been talking about this guy for years. Is the darling of the waiver wire.
You know what's crazy about Achane is that he actually got tackled at the 1-yard line in this game, and did not score on that same drive. So literally could have had 5.
Yep. A day of almost for De'Von Achane. What I love is that his name has been.
Well, he was on my bench, and I still. Sorry, Michael Smith, but I still kind of, as Barry would say, crush you like a grape.
My favorite thing about Achane is that it's been Achane or Achane, and then Damian Dabrowski's been calling him Achane as producer. So a lot of ways that you can say his name, but however you say
Only
it.
one way to get him on your roster. That's to use the #1 waiver wire bid or fab. Here's what I would say. So, real quickly, I think we just got to talk about him. We don't know. The positives are he led the team in snaps. He led the team in rushing attempts, right? He actually had more rushing attempts than friend of the podcast, Raheem Mostert. And we don't know if Jeff Wilson, what his role is going to be. He's currently out. So there's 3 scenarios that happens right here with Achane, right? He overtakes it all, right? Like he's the lead running back on the best offense in football. It's a timeshare with Raheem Mostert. Or it's a 3 running back by committee backfield when Jeff Wilson Jr. comes back. Given Raheem Mostert's injury history and given the fact that McDaniel, going back to his days in San Francisco, seems to like a multiple running back set, this is a guy who's young, who fits their profile. Like, none of this is a fluke. That's the thing. Like, he is a power speed combination, Connor, that we've talked about.
3rd round pick for a team that didn't have a lot of picks.
For a team that didn't have a lot of picks, they traded up to get him as well. McDaniel, all the reports was standing on the table to get him during draft night as well. So I think the worst case scenario is what we saw. Again, you've seen his best game of his career, but the worst case scenario is he's like a 1B in a 2-headed monster. I don't think it's going to be a 3-headed monster. I don't think this guy comes off the field. You know what I mean? Like to a significant, they'll mix in Mostert and maybe Wilson when he comes back. But ultimately, I think Achane has earned it. I would 75% of my fab. I would just because running backs are hard to come by. Running backs on this kind of offense are hard to come by. And there's a scenario again, there's a wide range of outcomes, whether he's part of a 3-headed committee. But there's a scenario where Mostert gets hurt or he's just too good that he winds up with 15 to 20 touches a game. And I think they play at such a high pace of play that he's going to wind up with double-digit touches on the team that scores the most touchdowns in the NFL.
Who would you rather have, Mostert or Achane the rest of the way? Mostert is the #1 running back in fantasy right now, by the way.
This is Robert looking his day. You know what I mean?
I think I'm probably still sticking with Mostert because the only anti-Mostert argument is the injury history.
Right.
That's the only thing. And Achane was also banged up in the preseason as well, but it's close.
Yep.
But the fact that I had to pause for a second when you asked me who would I rather have, the #1 running back in fantasy or a rookie with 1 good game under his belt, tells you what we think about De'Von Achane.
And you bring up a great point. I mean, Denver's defense feels like the Disneyland for fantasy this year, where whoever's seeing them could just go off. And that's the case for our next running back in Roschon Johnston, who plays the Broncos this week. And Roschon Johnston has not had that game, for a rookie running back that really stands out. He's coming off week 3, 8 carries, 38 yards, 2 catches, 11 yards. I do think he could help in the pass game a lot. But he's available in 52% of leagues right now, Matthew. And he does have Denver on the schedule coming up next.
Yeah, he certainly does. And, we've talked about this on draft night. If this guy played at any other college, right?
He gets more spotlight. He's behind Bijan Robinson.
Yeah, exactly. And so I would say from a skill standpoint, he strikes me as the best running back on that Bears offense.
He is.
They're 0 right. They're 0-3. They need to get him more touches. Like Roschon Johnston is coming. Double-digit touches in 2 out of 3 games this year. 45% of the snaps in week 3. His snap rate has increased in each week. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when Roschon Johnston takes this backfield over. We're saying get ahead of it, and we're saying get ahead of it this week because, to your point, Connor, they played Denver this week, and if anything, we've seen guys getting about 50% of the touches in a backfield against the Broncos tend to have pretty good days at the office.
And another thing with Roschon, he's really good in pass pro, and he can catch the dump-off passes. He's going to help you in PPR, and I don't think the Bears have faith in any of their other running backs to do that right now. So he's not this kind of guy where you need the big play from. He can honestly set a floor for you. He just needs to be on the field, and I think the Bears are finally ready to make that move, Jay.
Yeah, I think the main thing, too, is that the Bears are 0-3, and if they're not already in Caleb Williams mode, that's coming pretty soon because they look like the worst team in football at the moment, evidenced by the fact that they are a home underdog to the team that just lost by 50 points. So that's a problem. I do think the Broncos, like that defense will get better. Justin Simmons will come back. They won't lose by 50 every week. And I don't think that's going to be the worst defense in football that it's looked like so far. But it is a good matchup for Chicago, certainly compared to previous matchups.
How about looking at the Ravens, Jay? Justice Hill available in 64% of leagues. The Ravens do have that gauntlet of Cleveland's defense ahead of them next week. He was inactive last week. He's dealing with a toe injury. Could return in week 4. Because Justice Hill is on our list because Gus Edwards leaves Sunday's game with a concussion.
Yeah, and this is just kind of the placeholder in this segment for the Ravens running back du jour, where right now it's Justice Hill because Gus Edwards is in concussion protocol, and Justice Hill could be the guy if he comes back from his own injury. But again, this offense just hasn't looked as high octane as it was supposed to be. But if he is the lead running back in a Lamar Jackson offense, then he will be valuable. But Cleveland, at Pittsburgh, at Tennessee. 2 out of 3 of those matchups are terrible against Cleveland and Tennessee, and then Pittsburgh's defense is looking better as well. So I don't think you're super excited about Justice Hill, but he's going to be a viable flex if it's just him in the backfield.
Right, but it won't be. That's the problem. Yeah. It says that even if Gus Edwards is out with a concussion, the fact is Melvin Gordon played 40% of the snaps in week 3. He had, almost 60 yards on 12 touches. And so, Melvin Gordon is like a professional running back. Like he's not amazing, but is he solid? And again, like even Kenyon Drake was sitting on his couch watching this show, flipping through Peacock, going, "What the hell else is on?"
He's talked about every year on this show.
Yeah,
so.
Exactly. The Ravens just have this mentality of oh, do you qualify at running back? Here's 15 carries. So I wouldn't go crazy on Justice Hill, but if you have to start a Ravens running back this week, we do think Hill is the most likely beneficiary. And to the point of Cleveland being so good against the run and just a good defense, the fact is that Hills at least has some pass catching ability as well. So maybe you can get some dump offs there, try to get him in space.
The Ravens are like the perfect team to trade for Jonathan Taylor, in my opinion. And I understand the price might not, they won't want to meet the price. They're not going to pay a high-end price for him. But, I mean, J.K. Dobbins, he's hurt all the time at this point. It stinks, but they need a guy to feed consistently in the run game.
Yep, so, that would be frightening. Jonathan Taylor and Lamar Jackson in the same, in the same rushing attack.
They'd be a great team. By the way, so would the Steelers. Honestly, I'm not a Najee guy. You know this, sorry. But I do, with a fiery passion. And I don't know that they believe in Jalen Warren, but just think about Jonathan Taylor. Jonathan Taylor, who is what Najee Harris wants to be. What they want Najee Harris to be, Jonathan Taylor actually is.
Can he play quarterback? Because that's what Pittsburgh might need.
Looking over at the Giants, Matt Breida essentially taking over for Saquon Barkley, who has said he has a high ankle sprain, which in theory, if you have a high ankle sprain at running back, you're going to be out a long time. We'll see what Saquon does. Breida available in 98% of leagues. Jay, I think more importantly, they're playing Seattle. So while it's looked awful for the Giants offense in just about every aspect of the season besides the second half of Arizona, maybe there's some hope on the schedule for the Giants run game?
There is. Matt Breida was in the Saquon Barkley role against San Francisco. He played 21 of the first 24 snaps in the first half when the game was competitive. It's just that they never had the ball because Deebo Samuel and Christian McCaffrey kept on converting 3rd and 15s. So the Giants were never on the field. They never had a positive game script, so he only got 4 carries. I think he'll be a viable flex or low-end RB2 if he is the starter and there's no Saquon against the pretty suspect Seattle defense.
Barry, let's look at some backup running back stash targets. These aren't necessarily guys that you think are going to help you win in week 4, but maybe somebody you can keep on the roster, and you're one injury away from a breakout. Kendre Miller on the Saints. We know Alvin Kamara is coming back from suspension. Jamal Williams is hurt. We'll see what Kendre Miller, the third-round pick that the Saints can end up doing this year. Tyjae Spears, Derrick Henry coming off a really, really disappointing week. They're not going to move away from Derrick Henry.
Over 50% of snaps in 2 or 3 games this season,
by
the way. But he's playing, and more importantly, like they might move off Derrick Henry if the season goes south and it's heading that way.
Trade candidate.
You could say like, hey, we're going to trade Ryan Tannehill. We're going to trade, Derrick Henry. We're going to go with Will Levis. We're going to go with the youth movement. We're going to go with Tyjae Spears. And so again, waivers is always about this. What do you need? Do you need somebody this week, or are you just trying to fortify your bench so that when, like to your point, when I beat Jay this week in our show league, I had Jerome Ford on my bench already. I didn't have to go to the waiver wire and blow everyone out with my fab budget because I already had Jerome Ford. You already had De'Von Achane on your bench. Yeah. I had Tank Dell on my bench.
Right.
He had, I don't know, people that you didn't want to use on your bench, but and there's a reason why you're
right. Schultz out there.
Yeah, exactly.
I cut Dalton Schultz as Zach Ertz.
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
Right, so, great transaction.
But that's my point. And so Tyjae Spears, Kendre Miller, these are guys that we think. You saw Zach Charbonnet there.
Yeah.
Zach Charbonnet, he's rostered about 54% of leagues, so he might not be eligible, but I believe in that talent, and you never know given Ken Walker's injury history. Rico Dowdle has had back-to-back games with 3 red zone touches. Obviously, if anything were to happen to Pollard.
He's an injury away from being not just fantasy relevant, but a league changer.
Fantasy superstar.
Most people probably can't afford that stash, but man, if you're stashing hoping for a boom, and we're not rooting against Tony Pollard or him to get hurt, the reality is this is a guy that got a broken, fibula last year.
1,000%, and it's his first year as being the true workhorse running back. And no, we don't root for injury, but the fact of the matter is it's a violent game. Injuries do happen, and so you've already seen it with Austin Eckler, with Jonathan Taylor, with Saquon Barkley, with Nick Chubb. Like we've already seen big-name running backs miss time, and in some cases significant time with injuries. The fact of the matter is that Rico Dowdle, these are all guys that we think are worth a stash, and you saw it there on the screen in terms of the order that we would put them in.
Yeah, so let's order them right now. To recap the top running back waiver targets from Barry for week 4, we led with De'Von Achane from the Miami Dolphins. He's number 1. If he's available in your league, you heard Barry say it, 75% of the fab is what you're looking at there. Jay, we talked about Roschon Johnston. It's probably his time in the Bears offense. I think the question is just what is the Bears offense?
Yeah, absolutely. And the one guy who's not on this list but is, I think, very high upside, as we talked about, Tyjae Spears. The fact that he's outsnapped Derrick Henry in 2 out of 3 games, one, that's really weird. Secondly, the Titans' offensive line is so bad that they're sending multiple tight ends in motion to block Myles Garrett. And then the Titans, their next 3 games, home to Cincinnati, at Indianapolis, and then Baltimore and London. I mean, there's a chance they don't let Ryan Tannehill get back on the flight from London, and going into their bye week, they're just a new team coming out of that if they're 1-5, and Derrick Henry could be on a different team too.
They easily could be 1-5 or 2-4 in a tough division there. The only thing I'll say about the list that you just saw there is that, again, it depends on what you need. If I was not, the guys like, Breida and Justice Hill are more like, hey, I need somebody this week. But if you're just stashing, I would move Kendre Miller to 3. Again, because that's a kid that, talk to me about Kendre Miller out of TCU. I think he's got more pass-catching upside. Jamal Williams, not getting anything out of him. Who knows how hurt he is. He's obviously going to miss at least the next 3 games. And Alvin Kamara, I don't think is built for a full-time role at this stage of his career. I love Kendre Miller. Am I wrong?
No, that's the key, is that Kendre Miller does what Alvin Kamara cannot. And Alvin Kamara never really has been a heavy workload in between the tackles kind of guy. Big pass game, stretch runs. Kendre Miller can run in between the tackles. You can give him 20 touches a game. I know he's even brought this up. Like, he has more pass game upside than a lot of people think. There's a chance Kendre Miller takes that job from Jamal Williams, who is hurt, which might be unfair, and never looks back. That's what they drafted him in the 3rd round to do.
Yep. The other thing is Jameis Winston looked terrible against the Packers. And look, he came into the game halfway through. That's always a difficult situation. But, if he's bad again, they may need to lean on the run game even more.
I think this is a good time to have this conversation. Alvin Kamara's rookie year. I remember I was banging the drum for Alvin Kamara, and everyone was like, they got Mark Ingram, and they'd signed Adrian Peterson. Remember, Adrian Peterson had been with the Cardinals. They signed Adrian Peterson. Like, Alvin Kamara was this third round pick, and he was going to be 3rd on the depth chart. And everyone was like, no. And I'm just like, I don't know. Mark Greenwood doesn't get passes. I feel like Adrian Peterson's kind of done. Kamara, like when you watch him in the preseason, this guy's just electric. I feel like, whatever. Ultimately, rational coaching doesn't always happen, but more often than not, talent wins out. And so in cases like whether it's Kendre Miller or De'Von Achane that we're talking about here, like even if you can't necessarily see a clear path to playing time, ultimately talent wins out. That's what we're talking about with Roschon Johnston
exactly
as well. And so I maybe Alvin Kamara still has it. We haven't seen it the last 2 years. Word is that he's healthy and he's got a chip on his shoulder after 3-game suspension. But maybe, like, I'm not shocked if over the second half of the year, Kendre Miller is the lead running back for the Saints and like a top 15, 17 guy.
That's what they drafted him to be. I mean, they took him in the third round. Once again, he has a skill set that they need right now.
Yeah.
And Jay, your point further highlights that with Jameis Winston under center, they're going to have to run the ball more. Let's move over to the wide receivers because we have a lot to get through here, and that's because a breakout game from rookie wide receiver Tank Dell in the Houston Texans offense, thanks to his young quarterback that's looked great in C.J. Stroud. Barry, you got to sit with Tank Dell a couple months ago, and he talked about his relationship with C.J. Stroud before they even got to training camp. Take a listen.
This was at the NFLPA rookie premiere.
That's a great guy. That's my guy. Me and CJ, we've been with each other every day since he came to Houston. You know, I've been there, but since he came to Houston his first night in, you know, I went over there and we chilled for hours and we was just talking and chopping it up. But that's my guy. I told him I wanted to play with him. He told me he wanted to play with me. So, you know, we just tried to make it happen and it worked out for us.
Tank Dell available in 68% of leagues. Upcoming schedule, they got the Steelers, Falcons, Saints, and then the bye week. Week 3 against Jacksonville, though, Barry, 7 targets, 5 catches, 145 yards, and a touchdown. I mean, Tank Dell is only growing in this offense, and that relationship with Stroud is really evident.
Really evident as well. He led the team in targets in both of the last 2 games. Like, again, this isn't just, you know, some big play guy. This isn't a Marvin Mims situation. We're going to talk about Mims in a second. But this isn't a Marvin Mims situation where he only ran 5 routes, but 1 or 2 of them was a long, deep ball, and you're like, oh, the numbers look good. No. 84% route participation for Tank Dell in week 3. Again, he's led the team in targets each of the last 2 games, 17 targets over the last 2 weeks on a team that obviously is going to throw, that has confidence in C.J. Stroud, dropping back and throwing it. His routes keep coming up each. Look at this on your screen here, right? 34 to 72 to 145. You know, 10 targets in week 2, 7 at Jacksonville in week number 3. He scored each of the last 2 weeks as well. I said all preseason, we've played that tape multiple times. Tank Dell is going to be a thing this year. Well, that time is right now. Now, he's not available in our league because I have him on the bench. I decided not to use him against Jay. I took mercy on him, much like Mike McDaniel and Sean Payton.
Exactly.
Right? I took mercy on Jay
First time I've ever been compared to
last
Sean
week. But whatever. I took a knee. I put Tank Dell on the bench. It's fine what it is. I didn't want the record. 73. I didn't want the league record on you, Jay. But what I did want is Tank Dell on a lot of teams. I have a lot of Tank Dell. He should not be out there in 64% of the leagues. This is legitimate. And I will say that I would be as aggressive as we talked about De'Von Achane in terms of like 70% of your fab. Like I would be as aggressive on Tank Dell. Like Tank Dell is I'm gonna blow this right now. But you know what? We're doing the last segment of the show is DraftKings Future, and give me Tank Dell's odds on offensive rookie of the year. His future odds on that. Give me that. We will get into that. That is what is known in the business as a tease, because I am a broadcast professional. Thank you very much.
Indeed.
Jay,
Tank Dell is a professional wide receiver.
Yeah,
well,
indeed.
I'll be out then. We came into the show. Barry said there's value in old people. Adam Thielen clearly showed that this week. He's available in over 50% of leagues right now. Adam Thielen got the Andy Dalton boost.
Yes.
Is what they're calling it, Jay.
That's
Monster week for Thielen with Andy Dalton under center.
Just looked more like an NFL offense with Andy Dalton under center. It wasn't great, and they lost the game, and it was never particularly close in the final quarter. But look, Adam Thielen has shown that he can absorb a lot of targets and that he's going to produce a lot of garbage time stats, which counts all the same in fantasy. Also, DJ Chark as well. If Jonathan Mingo is going to miss time, DJ Chark might be a viable flex option for a team that is needing to throw because they're losing all the time.
11 targets in week number 3. There's a chance that Dalton is back under center for the Carolina Panthers. By the way, Adam Thielen goes against Minnesota this week. Revenge game for Adam Thielen.
Revenge game is against a bad defense as well. You don't want a revenge game against the Browns defense.
No,
but against the Vikings
you certainly
defense,
do not. But Vikings have allowed the third most yards to wide receivers this season. So as long as he's healthy, Adam Thielen will continue to be a viable guy.
Another popular name on waivers this week at wide receiver, of course, Joshua Palmer. We've had this moment in previous seasons where Joshua Palmer is a big waiver name because of an unfortunate injury to the Chargers wide receiver room. That comes to a season-ending injury for Mike Williams. Yes, they drafted Quentin Johnston in the first round, but Barry, it just seems like Josh Palmer will be the guy that steps in, at least for now.
Yeah, I mean, look, Brandon Staley at his press conference mentioned Johnston earning a bigger role. He's going to get more opportunities with Mike Williams out. But the fact of the matter is that Josh Williams already has those opportunities. He also mentioned in the same quote, he mentioned Keenan Allen and Josh Palmer. 3 games last year with Mike Williams out and Keenan Allen active. And in those 3 games, Josh Palmer averaged 13 fantasy points per game. This is over the last 2 years. He had a 19% target share. Again, it's all small sample size, but this is what we know. Josh Palmer's the number 3 wide receiver. He's now the number 2 on the Chargers, which is a very good offense. Right? I mean, we have questions about the defense, but the fact is they're going to be throwing a lot. And so if I needed someone to play over the next couple of weeks, it's Josh Palmer. If I'm just, as we talked about earlier in the show, if I'm looking for, hey, I feel pretty good about my wide receiver room, right? I just need to grab and stash somebody. Quentin Johnston would be the guy that I would want to grab and stash. Their schedule upcoming is kind of interesting. They play the Raiders this week, which you like, but then an early bye, then they're home to Dallas, then they're at Kansas City. So only 2 matchups in the next 4 that you feel good about. So I wouldn't go crazy on Josh Palmer. And by the way, 4 weeks from now, maybe Quentin Johnston has earned a bigger role. But I do think Palmer is the guy if you need to replace Mike Williams or you need a wide receiver for this week.
I think Justin Herbert might just be so good that he's matchup proof. It's like Patrick Mahomes where, if Patrick Mahomes is playing the Bills, well, it doesn't matter. It's Patrick Mahomes. He's just matchup agnostic. Herbert quietly, and everyone focuses on the Kirk Cousins pick and Justin Jefferson's big day. Herbert was better than Tua and Mahomes on the weekend. He was 40-47 for 405 yards, 3 touchdowns, no picks, only took the 1 sack as well. He was an absolute monster. And I just don't think Keenan Allen can get 15, 20 targets. He breaks down constantly, so they need to spread the wealth, and Josh Palmer's the number 1 candidate to take
It will be interesting to see how this changes a little bit once Austin Eckler comes back. They couldn't get anything going on the run game for the 2nd straight week, so that'll be interesting as well. But yeah, I mean, like, Justin Herbert is awesome. He's amazing. I'm in another dynasty league where there was a tremendous uproar this offseason when somebody in the league traded Justin Herbert. It's a super flex dynasty league, right? And this is a team that isn't particularly good.
Quarterbacks are king.
Quarterbacks are king. Traded Justin Herbert for Saquon Barkley. And the entire league was like,
wait,
what? Oh, there was lots of controversy. I won't call out who is in that league, but because they're known people. But I will just say there was a lot of
Blake, what did you do?
It
was not.
Blake again.
This one was actually not Penn State Blake, but Justin Herbert is somebody that should not be traded in a super flex
just
dynasty
quickly,
league.
Connor, can Quentin Johnston, his skill set, can that replace Mike Williams, or is it just too different a player?
In theory, it can. I mean, he's a big-bodied wide receiver. He flashed in college at winning down the field. I think the consistency for his size wasn't there, and I think the Chargers are showing their hand by not thrusting a first-round pick into that role. Yep. I mean, he didn't have a great summer. He was okay. They didn't really look to get him on the field as their 3rd wide receiver out of the gate this year often. And now there's the door wide open when Mike Williams gets hurt, and they're still like, he's going to get more opportunities. Yeah. I believe in Quentin Johnston to an extent, but this is not a great sign in my opinion. You drafted him for this situation.
Yeah, I mean, it's a little concerning. Although I will be honest with you, I have questions about the coaching staff. And
that's
fair. I'm a Kellen Moore fan, but I have questions about Staley.
That's fair.
Mr. Staley. So we will see there. It definitely is off to a slow start with Quentin Johnston. By the way, inconsistent for his size has been said about me more than once. Hey, next guy I want to bring up is, how about Romeo Dobbs?
On the short week.
On the short week, they play this Thursday night game against the Lions. He's got a 21% target share so far this season. He's tied for the 2nd most end zone targets. He's scored in 2 of 3 games. He's gotten 5 end zone targets. Maybe we get Christian Watson back this week. We're still unsure about that. But even if he's back, is he fully back there? Romeo Dobbs is out there in a lot of leagues. And I like their upcoming schedule. Look at this. Home to Detroit, at Las Vegas. They got a bye, and then they're at Denver.
Yeah.
So pretty nice run here for Romeo Dobbs, who is making the most of his opportunity with Christian Watson out.
I think the main thing with Dobbs as well is you see his offensive snaps going up from 48% to 77% to 86%. He is healthy now, and he wasn't back in week 1. And look, he's got a top 20 PFF grade among all wide receivers. He's just really solid. It's just a question of what his role becomes when Christian Watson presumably comes back at some point.
Right, and he's a guy that can play inside, outside. Jordan Love's keying in on him. It's good, Jay, that as that snap count goes up, it's not just cardio. The targets are skyrocketing as the snap count goes up. So I think the Romeo Dobbs usage is very for real. Like we did with the running backs, let's take a look at some deep league wide receiver waiver targets. These are stash plays, of course, starting with Rashee Rice for the Chiefs. He's available in 74% of the league. They're coming to MetLife for Sunday Night Football. Maybe Taylor Swift's coming with them. Broncos wide receiver Marvin Mims, a big play threat, available in 73% of leagues, Barry, against the Bears. That's a good sign.
That is a good look. Rashee Rice, by the way, almost scored twice in this game. If you're asking me to throw a dart at a Chiefs wide receiver, I think Rashee Rice is just a great stash. Marvin Mims, look, it's all gone to crap in Denver. And so here's one positive thing. Marvin Mims can play.
He's good.
He's got to get on the field more for Sean Payton. Wan'Dale Robinson made his debut last week. He had 7. He was targeted on 55% of his routes in his first game back. It's worth noting that the Seahawks have allowed the most yards to the slot this season. That's the Monday night game. And then you see Josh Downs there as well. Feels like, listen, the Colts offense is going to be better than we thought. They're going to be pass more than we thought. And Josh Downs is a kid that I think went under the radar in a lot, but kind of like him, Connor.
Yeah, slot only, great hands. I know he's had some problems this year when he was adjusting to Anthony Richardson, but he has good hands. He'll settle in. He's a good route runner. He's a short area guy. He's a PPR guy. When you look at him, he's a very effective PPR player in the future.
And when you've got Michael Pittman there on the outside, feels like I prefer Downs to Alec Pierce.
Me too. Defined role.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep, defined role
on what we think is a better than expected Colts passing offense.
With Mims, it's insane. He's averaged 9 routes run per game this year. That has to change. And if that changed, that means the points are going to skyrocket. Free Marvin Mims.
Marvin Mims. To recap my rankings, Tank Dell, if he's available in your league, again, not available in our league because I kept him on my bench to, take the knee against Jay. But he's my number 1 waiver target. Then old guy Adam Thielen, Josh Palmer, Romeo Dobbs, and Rashee Rice is at 5. But again, if I am looking for later in the season, Rice and Quentin Johnston would be move up, after. Tank Dell's my number 1 by far. Like, I think he's right there with De'Von Achane in terms of priorities on the waiver wire. I put Achane over him because running backs are more scarce than wide receivers, and Dolphins versus the Texans offense. But Tank Dell I would be aggressive to go get Tank Dell. This is absolutely legitimate.
Yep. Just quickly on Marvin Mims, it's gone under the radar because they lost 70-20, but Russell Wilson looks a lot better than he did last season.
This is true.
His performance overall is looking a lot better, so there's more upside for that offense in general.
Moving over to the tight ends, the tight end waiver targets for Week 4. The Cowboys tight end Jake Ferguson available in almost 60% of leagues. They're going up against the Patriots this week. In Week 3 against Arizona, targeted 7 times, 5 catches, 48 yards. Barry, as you always say, the bar at this position is pretty low, so Jake Ferguson is fantasy relevant right now.
He's got 18 targets through three weeks. It's tied for the 6th most of the position. He leads all players, not tight ends, all players with 8 red zone targets so far this season. Guys, I'm not convinced Dak Prescott's any good anymore. I don't know what's going on, but what I will tell you is, but it's been a bad start. Their defense has carried him, but what I will tell you is that Dak Prescott throughout his career, whether it was Dalton Schultz, whether it was even the ghost of Jason Witten, Dak Prescott likes to throw to the tight end, and so Jake Ferguson is the current starting tight end for the Dallas Cowboys. They play the Patriots and then the Niners, so you don't love the schedule upcoming, but again, the bar is low. Luke Musgrave was on that list as well. Again, just like I talked about with Tank Dell, at some point Luke Musgrave is going to be a thing. Once again, like Jordan Love, Luke Musgrave was wide open down the seam again this past Sunday, and if Jordan Love hits him in stride, it's like a 65-yard touchdown, and he just didn't. Jordan Love has still got to get more consistent with his accuracy, but Musgrave is getting free and getting open, and those are going to start hitting. So, and maybe it's this week against the Lions where Detroit has allowed the most yards to tight ends so far this season. So really like Musgrave, who's available in 82% of leagues, and Donald Parham Jr., who, we'll joke about on my old podcast. Like, I was obsessed with Donald Parham for years and years. XFL superstar.
He's like 7 feet tall.
Yes, exactly. You can't teach that. XFL superstar Donald Parham, like, it's inflated by touchdowns. Gerald Everett can't sniff a touchdown, much to the chagrin of Damian Dabrowski, who has a ton of Gerald Everett this year. But yeah, 3 of his 6 catches this year have gone for touchdowns. So,
he's kind of got the Roschon Johnston costume.
Yeah, exactly, a little bit, and especially with Mike Williams, another big body no longer there, and Quentin Johnson not getting on the field as much. Donald Parham is somebody that for deeper leagues, is to look at.
Jay, you talked about that Chargers offense, how for real Justin Herbert is right now. Parham's available in every single league, essentially, right now. If you were a desperate streamer, would you buy in that maybe this is for real? He's not going to catch 10 passes a game, but a touchdown here or there?
Well, to your point earlier about buying into the Dolphins offense over the Texans offense, when you want to take flyers, you want to take them on the best offenses with the best quarterbacks, because all of a sudden it just takes one thing to click, and then all of a sudden you've got a guy who's potentially a tight end 1 for Justin Herbert, and his number 1, number 2 receiver's just gone down.
I mean, again, after you get to a certain point, all the tight ends are basically touchdown-dependent tight ends. When they score, it's great. When they don't, they're useless. And so, to your point, I think Juwan Johnson is actually a great comp, right? Juwan Johnson, I mean, again, Donald Parham has 6 catches this year, but 3 of them have gone for touchdowns. And so I think he could have that kind of season given his skill set in the red zone, given that offense, given Justin Herbert's tendencies as well. And so, yeah, I don't think massive volume for him, but do I think we look up at the end of the year and he's got double-digit touchdowns? Very possibly.
Yep.
Let's move over to the quarterbacks. Listen, the Cardinals, a lot of people were joking about them before the season, and there was some trash talk there leading up to the Dallas game. But Josh Dobbs had a nice little response after Arizona's massive upset win over Dallas.
Josh Dobbs, I'm putting him on a bulletin board. I'm throwing darts at him.
Woo. Go Cards.
That was Micah Parsons throwing the darts at
Josh Dobbs dodging them, coming away with a W. Go Josh Dobbs. Again, I've talked about him on this show before. One of my favorite players in the NFL. I do the NFLPA rookie premiere, and I have for like the last 7 or 8 years. I interview 40 to 45 kids every single year for 7 to 8 years. And literally over the last 8 years, my 2 favorite interviews of all time, Josh Dobbs and Mac Hollins. Both awesome. Seriously, I have always rooted for those 2 guys just after meeting them. I root for a lot of people. But anyway, Josh Dobbs is just like one of the really good guys in the NFL. And it's exciting for me just to see the fact that, like, he's getting a chance to prove he should be a starting quarterback in the NFL. I don't know what happens with Kyler Murray when he comes back and what's going to happen with this team, but I think what he has shown over the last 2 weeks that he deserves to be a starting quarterback in the league, right? Consecutive games with 40 or more rushing yards as well. You know what I mean? Like, this is a guy that's, I think, more mobile than he gets credit for. He's distributing the ball well, whether it's Marquise Brown. How about Michael Wilson, by the way? That's another guy that, like, again, deep league stash for a wide receiver as well. Now, they play San Francisco this week, but whatever. They also played Dallas last week, and Josh Dobbs put up 20 fantasy points. So, like Josh Dobbs, C.J. Stroud against Pittsburgh, Andy Dalton against Minnesota. You see it all there on your screen. These are all just sort of streamers this week. Stroud, I think, is the guy, and, of course, Jameis against his former team, the Buccaneers, in #revenge game. But how about Stroud? To me, of the guys, Stroud is the guy on that list that I know, barring injury, is starting every game this year.
Yeah, and also Stroud the past 2 weeks has been one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. I don't really understand how it's happened, but the fact that he's doing this with 80% of his offensive line missing, Laramie Tunsil will come back, Titus Howard will come back. Presumably guys like Tank Dell and Nico Collins will get better as well as the season goes on, as they develop more chemistry with Stroud. He should just get better as the season goes on, which is kind of frightening given that he's already been really good so far.
We'll close out with some defenses to stream here. Of course, the Browns, they're playing at Baltimore. That Browns defense under Jim Schwartz right now is cooking. They're available in over 50% of leagues.
This is sort of surprising. I mean, I don't know if it's just because they're the Browns, or they just, when people are sorting by fantasy points, they've been more dominant in NFL ways than they have in fantasy. But, like, they've got the 7th highest sack rate this season. They're allowing the fewest yards and fewest points per game. And, oh, by the way, they play the Ravens, who, like, I was promised a high-flying offense, and I have not gotten that.
And Lamar Jackson takes a ton of sacks.
Ton of sacks.
Yep.
Ton of sacks. So we like the Browns.
Bucks on here as well.
The
at the Saints
defense.
against Jameis.
Yeah, traveling on a short week, but, you know, going. Yeah. I mean, listen. You know, if you get points for interceptions and pick sixes, I mean,
it goes a long way.
Jameis doesn't. You know, since he entered the league in 2016, Jameis Winston has the 3rd highest interception rate.
Yep.
In the NFL. So, anyway.
All right.
Low.
Let's close out with some droppables. Of course, we talked this entire segment about all the players that you should add, but who are you clear to drop? These players are rostered in over half of leagues right now, and Dalvin Cook at the top of this list, Barry, 86% rostered right now. He looks like a complete shell of himself. I'm being
the offense looks awful. The Jets' offensive line looks awful. Just the idea that they're going to be in scoring position often doesn't feel like that's going to happen.
And he doesn't look good.
He does not look good as well. Samaje Perine. Jamel McLaughlin keeps coming into the red zone. It's super annoying. That Denver Broncos offense doesn't look like they're going to be playing with a lead very much. You know, Javonte Williams is barely usable. Brandon Cooks, I mean, it's him and it's Gallup. I mean, I don't mind dropping Brandon Cooks. I think his usage is going to be inconsistent. You got Juju there as well. Like, what are you doing? How is Juju still Smith-Schuster still rostered in 61% of leagues? Come on, people. And then Antonio Gibson, honestly, it is the Brian Robinson show.
Yep.
And the fact is that if anything were to happen to Brian Robinson, I'm not convinced Antonio Gibson suddenly becomes the guy. I think it might be Chris Rodriguez. They don't seem to like Antonio Gibson. He just doesn't, you know, he's had some bad fumbles. He just can't get on the field. So those are some guys some drops. Also, Pete, can you show Jay's roster one more time? In our fantasy league, we could just any of like if
you're gonna drop Justin Herbert.
There's probably a lot of guys. Well, he couldn't get you to a W, could he? It just feels like there's a lot of guys on can't catch Mike's Vegemite or whatever the name of your team is.
A new name. Need to change up the comma.
Yeah, something.
All right.
Exactly.
We're taking our first break. When we're back, our Monday Night Football reactions, including is DeAndre Swift an RB1 in fantasy right now? Right after this.
14 of the Rams, Burrow in the gun, second down, 6, shotgun snap, handoff to Mixon over the left tackle, breaks the tackle, 10 to 5, break the tackle at the 4, into the end zone, touchdown, Cincinnati, Joe Mixon.
We got a touchdown! Yeah!
Bengals beat the Rams on Monday Night Football on the doubleheader here, 19-16. And the most important thing, guys, Ja'Marr Chase back in form. We saw Joe Burrow leaning on Ja'Marr Chase. We saw Ja'Marr Chase lined up all over the field. He played in the slot. He played outside. He ends up with 12 catches, 141 yards. That is more receptions and receiving yards in Week 3 than Weeks 1 and 2 combined. I think for all of the fear, Jay, about Ja'Marr Chase, that's out of the way. But the Joe Burrow fear is not. Are you still concerned about Joe Burrow just playing through this calf injury right now?
Yeah, very concerned. He clearly wasn't Joe Burrow. He couldn't push into his throws. He wasn't throwing down the field. But they still threw the ball 49 times, so I didn't really understand. But the fact that he was throwing with that much volume and he got through the game. And here's the thing with Joe Burrow. Their next 3 games, at Tennessee, at Arizona, Seattle, and then the bye week. He just needs to survive those 3 games, and they're going to be favored in all of them. 3 favorable matchups. Then if he can just get through that and then get healthier in the bye, he should be a monster the second half of the season.
Again, just like Deshaun Watson got right against the Titans, I think Joe Burrow gets right against the Titans. So if you want, I still think he's a buy low candidate. I still believe in the overall talent and the talent of that offense. So your chance to buy low is basically this week. By the way, so Ja'Marr Chase and Joe Burrow, both guys that it's worth investing in. Much like they've invested in FantasyLife.com, just in case you're clear. They're both proud Fantasy Life investors.
Is Puka Nacua an investor in FantasyLife.com?
He is not yet, but we will reach out to him. I would certainly like to invest in him more than I already have, and you know I love me some Puka Nacua. Look, his worst, this was crazy, 5 for 72, and that's his worst game of the season by far. Actually should have had a touchdown. That last throw was underthrown as well. But still, he played the most. He played the most snaps. He ran the most routes among all the Rams wide receivers in Week 3. Played 96% of the snaps. And you think about their upcoming schedule: the Rams at the Colts, home to Philadelphia, home to Arizona, home to Pittsburgh. I mean, like both the Colts and Eagles are top 10 in terms of most fantasy points allowed to opposing wide receivers this season. So it felt like the Bengals made an effort to take away Puka Nacua, and yet they still were able to get a usable game. I mean, like, if 5 for 72 is his floor, all in on Puka Nacua as if I wasn't. Worth mentioning very quickly in this game, Tutu Atwell, 450 and a touchdown. He got 9 targets. He gives them that speed that they just don't have. They also use him in the backfield. He got 1 rush for 22. He's another guy that
I don't think he's going away.
I don't think so.
People are kind of, when is Cooper come? I think Tutu Atwell's role is Tutu Atwell's role. They drafted him on day 2 of the draft a couple years ago because they needed speed in the offense. He's finally ready.
Yeah, I mean, it'll be interesting whether he'll be fantasy. I don't know if this offense is going to be good enough to support 3 fantasy viable wide receivers.
As well as Tyler Higbee.
And then you've also got Tyler Higbee there, but feels like he'll have the Van Jefferson role, just that, the clear out role, which will be some spike plays. But at least for next week when they play the Colts, Tutu Atwell on your radar as well. Last thing I just want to mention here, Kyren Williams, 100% snap share. Literally did not come off the field. So not a massive game for Kyren, and the weird, Stafford just couldn't dump it down to him. It was so weird. Like, you're like, that should be the easiest throw, and it wasn't, but whatever. You'll love to see that usage from Williams. Better days ahead for him.
The odd bad Stafford game in Week 3. We'll see if it bounces back in Week 4. The other game on Monday Night Football for this doubleheader, the Eagles beat the Bucs pretty easily. The score ends up 25-11. They were in control much of this game. Jay, another good night from DeAndre Swift, where you have to ask at this point, is he a legitimate RB1 right now in fantasy, or trustworthy RB1 is what I would say?
I think legitimate, yes. Trustworthy, no, just because you don't know what's going to happen with that situation. At the same time, you look at the box score, and Swift had 16 carries, Gainwell had 14. That's a bit misleading, because Gainwell was getting all the work at the end when the game was effectively in hand. Swift just looks so much better than Gainwell. He looks so much more explosive, and you have to think that rational coaching will prevail and that Swift will continue to get RB1 usage.
I have a contrarian take on DeAndre Swift, though. I think he's a sell high. I think he's the ultimate sell high, even forgetting their injury history, which is real and spectacular, right? The fact is think about this. When they get in close, they're going to Jalen Hurts, right? So he's likely not going to get, like, a bunch of different times this year, he's had the opportunity to get in the end zone. He's had some bad luck. He's been down at the 1, but also when it's first and goal on the 1, they give it to Jalen Hurts. The other thing is he's just not being used in the passing game, which is super weird, right? Given, what he used to do in Detroit. But like through 3 weeks, he has an 8% target share. He has 3 or fewer targets in each game. So really, like, again, he was dominant in this game, 130 yards on 16 rushes, 1 reception for 8. But like, so wait, he got like, in a game like this, he got under 15 fantasy points. Like this should have been a 22-point game given how dominant he was and how much they were up. And so my point is that he's been in 2 national games where everyone's seen him look like, whoa, DeAndre Swift looks awesome. That offensive line is great. But again, like, he's probably not scoring a ton of touchdowns, and he's not involved in the passing game, and the injury history is real. And Kenneth Gainwell is still there. And so I just think he's a sell high to me. I'm not just giving him away because I do think there's value, and I think he's clearly the Eagles running back you want. But I actually think that you could get kind of a king's ransom for him right now, and I would explore that.
There's a real chance he's just the more exciting version of Miles Sanders last year.
That's right.
Yep.
And without the scoring, by the way. Again, I mean, Miles Sanders at least had double-digit touchdowns last year.
As someone who has Devontae Smith, I feel like in every league this year, am I wrong to start to have concern that it's just going to be an A.J. Brown week this week, a Devontae Smith week this week? Or can Jalen Hurts actually, keep afloat both of these guys on a week-by-week basis?
I think so. I mean, look, to me, Hurts hasn't looked fully baked yet. Hasn't looked like the guy, my ride or die from last year. I think they have a new offensive coordinator who's called. It's the same playbook, but he's new to playing calls, and it just feels like they've also had some bad luck. A.J. Brown should have had 3 more touchdowns on this season. He dropped 2 balls. It didn't matter, but he dropped 2 touchdowns on last night. And then the other one the week before. So I'm not there yet on Devontae Smith. I think the Eagles will. Every week they're a little bit better. Like, my opinion on Hurts hasn't changed yet. I wish he was running more. He's not running as much, which is a concern. But the fact of the matter is that I'm not there yet on Devontae Smith. He's too talented as well. Last thing, like, the Bucs are the Bucs. Rachaad White gets a ton of work and doesn't do anything with it. I just want to mention Trey Palmer, 6th-round pick out of Nebraska, whose snap rate has increased week after week after week. He's the 3rd wide receiver, somebody that, again, kind of a deep league stasher name to keep on your radar.
It's just a matter if Baker Mayfield can make that matter, their 3rd wide receiver. That's what we're keeping an eye on. We'll take our last break.
I think they'll be better.
When we're back, we're taking a look at our favorite future bets, courtesy of DraftKings. DraftKings Sportsbook is an official sports betting partner of the NFL, and today, new customers can bet $5 and get $200 in bonus bets instantly. Download the app and use promo code BERRY when you sign up. DraftKings Sportsbook, the crown is yours. All right, a little back to the futures here, guys. Jay, let's keep it real simple. Which futures bet do you have your eye on right now?
Going to Defensive Rookie of the Year, Connor, market that I enjoyed last year with your man Sauce Gardner. friend of the show. I'm taking Christian Gonzalez, who's plus 900, cornerback on the Patriots. He's the third favorite behind Jalen Carter and Will Anderson. Jalen Carter's even money to win this award. That's way too short. He plays half the snaps. He's got 1.5 sacks. I understand he's fantastic, but it's very early in the season. Christian Gonzalez, here's what he's done the past 2 games against Tyreek Hill and Garrett Wilson. Tyreek Hill, 17 routes against Gonzalez, 0 catches on 2 targets, and Gonzalez had an interception. And then Garrett Wilson goes 3 catches for 18 yards on 23 routes. Bill Belichick is trusting this rookie in his second and third games to guard Tyreek Hill and Garrett Wilson on an island. I think he should be much shorter than plus 900.
I would just like to thank the Washington Commanders for passing on Christian Gonzalez.
Yeah.
When they needed secondary
Forbes.
help.
They took a corner.
And they took Emmanuel Forbes,
He's not as good.
who's been okay, but hadn't been Christian Gonzalez.
Jay, I'm going to piggyback your thought here, but I'm going to go with Devin Witherspoon,
Sure.
who was drafted in the top 5 of the draft. He had his best week of the season so far in week 3, double-digit targets. He only allowed, I think, 5 catches and 1 first down. He was lights out. He broke up 2 passes. He's been great against the run. You just see the juice on the field with this guy. Seattle's defense looked really bad out of the gate this season. Witherspoon back, healthy, ready to go. He's been awesome. He's a long shot. He's plus 2,000. But more importantly, guys, I'm going Bears under 5.5 wins right now. I have no faith in this team getting to 6 wins this season. And this thing, the schedule is not bad. Denver, okay, at Commanders. I think they're in trouble there, Barry. I'll side with you. Minnesota and Las Vegas. I just don't believe in anything this team is doing right now.
Yeah, it looks pretty brutal here. So listen, I'm going Texans. Like I looked at, I wanted to like, oh, hey, can I take the Texans win total over, right? I looked at the Arizona win total over, which I both like those bets, but turns out everyone does because they're both at minus 140. So I mentioned it earlier in the show. Tank Dell 20-1 to win Offensive Rookie of the Year. C.J. Stroud's plus 450 as well. Chances are Stroud gets there. But how about this? Because I do think the Texans are pesky. They've played better defense. Their offense has been better as well. They're well coached. So DeMeco Ryans is 30-1 to win Coach of the Year. If they win that division, by the way, and they're 11-1 to win the division, I mean, they've already got a win against Jacksonville as well. Tennessee looks like they're close to tanking in the season. The Colts aren't world beaters, even the Colts beat them, but didn't beat them handily in week 1. So I don't know. DeMeco Ryans is Coach of the Year. If they make the playoffs, Ryans wins Coach of the Year, right? Again, that's a guy, rookie coach with
lower bar to clear the most. 10-7 probably does it.
Yeah, exactly. So that's I think that's kind of interesting. I think there's value in the Texans this year.
Might be good. Ride Stroud. Stroud might just be the 13th best quarterback in the NFL right now.
Right. He really might be. He really might be.
And by now, because when that line gets healthy, and they look good in the system right now, but they're going to get better as they get more comfortable in it. The Texans are, it's weird to say, but a buy low right now. They only get tougher.
How about that? Hey, it's closing time, Connor, which means you don't have to go home, but you can't stay here for 0-3 Jay and 3-0 me and Connor. Peace out. Fake news. Hey, it's Matthew Berry from NBCSports.com and RotoWorld.com, and I want to thank you so much for watching whatever it is you just watched, or if nothing else, being too lazy to click out of the autoplay after this video started, after whatever it is you actually wanted to watch finished. But now that you're here, I'd like to take a moment here to ask you respectfully now, okay? I'm asking you respectfully to subscribe to the NFL on NBC YouTube channel. You'll get the latest Roto-World fantasy news headlines, all sorts of great shows, including my own Fantasy Football Happy Hour. So go subscribe now. Again, I'm asking respectfully.